Welcome back, America. The Free Beacon is one of the great sites out there. Really is. And one of the great journalists there is Adam Kredo, who's a friend of mine. And Adam, you've been doing some great reporting. You always do. Tell the American people, what is the Palestine Chronicle and why does it matter?
Sure, I'm happy to, and thanks for having me. It's always great to be with you. So the Palestine Chronicle was a little-known publication until this week, really, that was out there kind of defending Hamas's war on Israel, running propaganda against the Israeli government, accusing it of genocide. But the reason it's got attention now is that apparently one of its writers, a guy who has been published quite a bit on that website, a fellow named Abdallah al-Jamal, he was actually found to be holding Israeli hostages in his home in the Gaza Strip. So eyes quickly focused on that website with people trying to figure out.
So hold on 1 minute. So we have a journalist here, really. He also has ties to Al Jazeera, if I understand, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
He's holding hostages?
Hostages in his home. 3 Israeli hostages. I talked to the Israeli Defense Forces. I wanted to confirm it, and they did. The hostages were held captive by Abdallah al-Jamal and members of his family in their home. And the IDF also told me something that I think we know but bears repeating. It's further evidence of Hamas's deliberate use of civilian homes and buildings in their military operations and, of course, to house hostages.
And there was a Palestinian survey that I was going to get to later, but I'm with you now, so let's hit it now, which says that 67% of the Palestinian civilians support what happened on October 7th and would support Hamas and believes Hamas is going to win. Did you read that?
I did read that, and there was one a couple weeks ago that was actually higher. It was about 70%. So support for the attack has remained steady, and support for Hamas continuing its rule has remained steady. And I think this is borne out in one very particular thing. While Hamas militants on October 7th crossed the border into Israel and conducted a terror attack, thousands more just civilians, quote-unquote civilians, also flooded the border and participated in murder, rape, and torture of Israeli civilians. So I think that shows you the clear evidence that, by and large, those living in the Gaza Strip fully support Hamas.
So we have this Palestine Chronicle in the United States, right, as well as other places. And this journalist is working for them, and he is basically a terrorist because he's holding 3 of the 4 who the Israelis bravely, fought and secured. But you learned more, right?
I did. I looked into this group, and you're right. I think a very important fact here is this is a U.S.-based website. It's registered as a nonprofit, a C3. It gets tax-exempt status by the IRS, and their treasurer and their editor-in-chief are based here in the United States in Olympia, Washington. That's one thing I found. But what I also looked at when I searched their writers, their editor-in-chief, a fellow named Ramzi Baroud, is that they have quite a few ties to the Iranian government and Iranian government propaganda sites. Baroud himself was formerly an editor and executive for Al Jazeera, which we know is controlled by Hamas, now outlawed in Israel for disseminating propaganda and supporting Hamas. And also some of these other writers wrote for outlets that were actually seized by the U.S. government in around 2020 for being part of a massive propaganda effort run by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, their fighting force. This was a full-blown intelligence and propaganda effort. Those sites were seized by the U.S. government, and we saw their writers also being published on the Palestine Chronicle, this nonprofit.
But these people have influence in the broader media, don't they? I mean, the broader media looks to these entities, these so-called nonprofit groups. They're reporting really on behalf of their propaganda. They're using their propaganda. They're using the Hamas propaganda. We've been infiltrated, to put it bluntly, haven't we?
Yeah, I think you make a very fair point that even though a general reader isn't going to know these sites, that journalists who cover the region and just do kind of what I call fly-by coverage, these are the sites they're reading to get information, and they're being spoon-fed pro-Hamas propaganda, anti-Israel propaganda, and this kind of what underpins some of the reporting we see at more major outlets that are relying on sites like this for the reporting, right? They're going there to read a reporter, this guy who held hostages, who's based in Gaza. Well, he must know something. He's based there. So, of course, that's influencing a lot of the U.S. reporters who, as far as I'm concerned, really don't know much about the region but are covering this issue because it's big right now.
What is the Biden administration reaction to all this?
Virtually nothing. I haven't heard a thing from them, even though I've asked the State Department, which I cover primarily, although it has gotten attention in Congress. I will tell you that quite a few senators have already petitioned the IRS and other federal law enforcement agencies to look into this Palestine Chronicle, to look into its parent company, the People Media Project, this C3 nonprofit that oversees them. And they want, one, the tax-exempt status pulled, and two, an examination of whether these guys may have violated anti-terrorism laws for allegedly providing material support for terrorism, which, of course, we know a lot of nonprofits in the U.S. have been tied to. And when I think you're seeing this type of propaganda be put out there, and by the way, the Palestine Chronicle, after their reporter was killed in this Israeli operation, ran a glowing obituary for him, claimed he's not a militant, he's just an innocent journalist. Hamas employs many innocent journalists, and also this fella also formerly worked for Hamas. He was a spokesman in a various capacity for them, so that's another bit of evidence there for you. But I think lawmakers are finally beginning to look at it. I think these campus protests that are going on have spurred lawmakers to look into the funding networks. Where are these nonprofits getting their money, and who are the people bankrolling it? That's going to be a big topic going forward, and I don't think this is going to fade from the congressional purview.
You know, I don't think it'll be a big topic if the Democrats win the House. I really don't, because they don't give a damn.
No,
in fact,
I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Journalists in our country, the Jake Fake Tappers, others, have they reported on any of this?
No, you've seen very few reports about this. In fact, I did see CNN and the Palestine Chronicle actually citing CNN as evidence that the Israelis are lying about this writer, that he was not a hostage taker, he was an innocent, his family is innocent. How Israeli hostages got into their home, who knows? But they cited that on their own website as evidence that the Israelis are just making this up. So you see larger media outlets like a CNN lending credibility to the idea purely that Israel is lying about this. When we have all the evidence, you just need to look at it.
Boy, oh boy. I just feel since October 7th, and we always knew it, but everybody's out of the closet now. All the Jew haters and anti-Semites, all the Israel haters, America haters. It's in our streets. It's at the White House over the weekend, and the vandalism, the violence, the threats. Hardly looks like America anymore, Adam Kredo. I want to thank you, the wonderful folks at the Free Beacon. Keep it up, and God bless you, my friend.
It's always my pleasure. Great to be with you.
He's a great, serious, real reporter.